Up on Mountain News at 5:30, a Madison County park has been closed since June after being struck by severe storms. More on what's being done to reopen it. Plus, the Teamsters Union announces if their 340,000 UPS members have accepted a new contract or reject it, advancing toward a possible strike that could cripple shipping nationwide.
And this stretch of heat continues as high pressure sits over the region. Your full forecast coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to southern and eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Olivia Calfee. Nearly 100 trees snapped and fell at Richmond's Camp Catalpa Park during the severe storms in June. Richmond's Parks and Recreation Department has been working ever since to find a professional cleanup crew so the park can reopen. As Mariah Conjito found out, they now have an answer.
If you drive by Camp Catalpa Park, you'll see the orange fencing is still up, and it has been since the storms came through. But people with Parks and Recreation say there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
We are very excited that we're able to start the project. Many people are going to be excited.
Ever since the park was revitalized in 2017,
the entire parking lot is full all the time, and it's one of our best kept secrets.
Aaron Moore with Richmond Parks and Recreation says people have come to really love what it has to offer.
We do have access to walking trails. We've got access to fishing. There's a playground up there. We've got an 18-hole disc golf course up there.
So as one can imagine, the storm damage is devastating.
Every day we get people messaging us on Facebook, calling the Parks Department, hey, when's Camp Catalpa going to be back?
Moore says folks in the community have offered to help with cleanup, but the damage is too severe, even for their own employees.
Downed trees, downed limbs, those are all things that our staff can take care of. But these bigger issues with full-size trees, root beds, they all have to be removed safely.
Moore says the city went through an extensive bidding process over the last few weeks. They have awarded the project to a Kentucky-based company who's expected to be done with cleanup by mid-September.
We have to bid out projects that are over $30,000. And this project is probably close to that number.
Most of the damage, Moore says, is here at the front of the park. Large trees did fall in the back, narrowly missing the park's various structures.
We appreciate the support of the community. They are understanding, and we do appreciate all their patience.
Moore says some people have gone into the park even though it is closed, but she reminds everybody not to do that because of the unsafe conditions. In Richmond, Mariah Conjito, WKYT.
Parks and Recreation does not have a start date yet for cleanup. They say to follow along on their website and social media pages for updates.
Warm weather continues across the mountains into this evening. Here's a live look right now from the WYMT studio. We stay dry under plenty of blue sky. That current temperature, though, is toasty at 88 degrees here in Perry County. Most of us in the upper 80s and lower 90s. 90 for London, 91 in Somerset, 85 in Jackson, also Pikeville, and 89 over in Harlan County at this hour. So we are dry, also toasty across the mountains up on the radar. Once again, a clean sweep does continue, all thanks to high pressure. We do have this front that is over the Kentucky and Tennessee border, but again, moisture is very limited, so we do stay dry as we go into tonight. Also for much of this week, as high pressure does continue. Now for Thursday, Friday, also into the weekend, maybe a few stray showers. Models are still having trouble with that. As we get closer to that, though, we will watch out for it as we get closer, but the big story continues to be the heat for the middle of the week. Those details coming up in just a few minutes. Olivia?
Cameron, thank you. The best contract in history, that's what the Teamsters president is calling the latest labor agreement approved by the union's UPS membership Tuesday. Hanging in the balance was a possible strike that could have crippled shipping in the U.S. CNN's Laura Aguirre has more on today's announcement that will keep your packages moving.
Strike averted for now. The Teamsters say a majority of their UPS union members voted to accept the company's latest 5-year contract. Teamsters leadership and the company initially avoided an August 1st strike with a tentative labor deal that both sides called a win. Still, it was up to the union's rank and file to lock it in at the ballot box. Inside the new contract, pay raises for both full and part-time employees, cost of living raises, and the elimination of a two-tiered pay system between new and existing hires. All workers will be moved to the higher scale immediately under the approved agreement. This is also good news for the nation's economy. UPS claims to move about 6% of America's gross domestic product each year, delivering on average more than 18 million packages a day so far this year. And now they'll keep on rolling.
Yeah, at least probably a couple times a month.
UPS and Prime, and you see the Prime vans all around.
I'm Laura Aguirre reporting.
Another big win for UPS workers. All new vans purchased starting next year will have air conditioning. Still, the company stopped short of promising to retrofit existing trucks with AC. If the Teamsters had gone on strike, it would have been the largest walkout against a single employer in U.S. history. One person was killed and another was injured after a home owned by Tennessee Titans player Caleb Farley exploded and collapsed overnight. This happened in Mooresville, North Carolina. Officials say the body of Farley's father was recovered after a search of the debris. A second person was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Property records show that a 6,500 square foot home valued at $3 million was sold to Farley last year. A 70-year-old guard is safe after inmates took him hostage in a St. Louis jail. They took him at 6 a.m. local time this morning and held him for more than 2 hours. A source familiar with the situation says the detainees demanded pizza and chicken patties in exchange for releasing him. One of their complaints is they do not get enough hot food. Officials were seen wheeling the guard out in a wheelchair and then loading him into a rescue vehicle. A prominent lawyer charged with advising former President Donald Trump on interfering with the 2020 election has surrendered for arrest in Georgia. John Eastman faces a racketeering charge and 8 other counts in Fulton County. He is among Trump's 18 co-defendants indicted by a grand jury this month. A court filing shows he has an agreement with the DA's office to get out of jail on a $100,000 bond. The so-called crypto king Sam Bankman-Fried was in court today to enter a not guilty plea. It was the first the FTX co-founder appeared in court after his bail was revoked regarding claims of witness tampering. Bankman-Fried had to respond to a superseding indictment that claimed fraud and money laundering charges at both FTX and Alameda Research. Bankman-Fried will remain in detention at least until his October trial. Another top Biden administration official is set to visit China next week. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo is set to travel to Beijing and Shanghai from August 27th to the 30th. The department says she will discuss issues related to U.S.-China commercial relationships, U.S. businesses in China, and other areas for potential cooperation. Earlier this summer, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, and climate envoy John Kerry visited Beijing. The Biden administration has officially launched its new student loan repayment program. It's called SAVE and aims to significantly lower payments and reduce overall loan cost for millions of people. The White House says the income-driven repayment plan will calculate payments based on the borrower's income and family size, not their loan balances. It will also forgive remaining balances after a certain number of years.
And here's how it works. To pay back that loan, you had to pay 10% of your discretionary income. That's all the income available to you after you pay for food, housing, and all your basic needs. Under my new plan, we're reducing that payment to just 5% of your disposable income.
SAVE will be fully implemented next summer. It follows a Supreme Court strike down of President Biden's previous student loan forgiveness program in late June. The cost of child care in the U.S. continues to increase despite overall inflation ticking down. The Labor Department reported the average price of daycare and preschool went up 6% compared to a year ago. That was nearly double the overall inflation rate of 3.2%, which was down from its recent peak of 9.1% of June last year. Caitlin Owens, who is a senior policy reporter at Axios, says there are some cost-affordable options for parents.
Yeah, so there is a federal child care program. The Biden administration earlier this summer announced plans to cap the copays of families that participate in that program. That is a proposed rule that the administration says they are aiming to finalize next year.
Parents could see childcare prices continue to climb this fall as providers boost prices to cover increasing costs and federal pandemic aid ceases. As kids head back to school, many parents are wondering how to minimize pressure on their children when it comes to school achievement. Award-winning journalist Jennifer Braheny-Wallace sat down to discuss the topic on CBS Mornings. Her new book about toxic achievement pressure is titled Never Enough. Wallace says high-income, high-achieving students are 2 to 6 times more likely to suffer from clinical levels of anxiety, depression, and substance abuse disorder.
And she said, minimize criticism, prioritize affection. When they walk in the door, lead with lunch. Don't ask how they did on that test. Yeah. Make them feel like they matter for who they are, not what they achieved.
Wallace interviewed 200 parents and students for the book and surveyed nearly 6,000 parents. She says her work has helped change her own approach to parenting. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, if you are looking for ways to give back, why not start with the people closest to you? Why giving circles are growing in popularity and how you can start your own.
Plus, we stay dry tonight, but stray rain chances may return to close out the week. Those details coming up after this break.